Welcome to this explainer. You know, when we picture the year 2050, I think it's so easy to just imagine a slightly shinier version of today. Maybe faster phones or sleeker cars, but the data we're looking at tells a vastly different story. We are literally hurtling toward a reality that fundamentally rethinks how we get our goods, where we live, how nations interact, and honestly, even how we see ourselves. So today, our specific focus is answering one massive question. What will the world actually look like in 2050?
Okay, let's dive right into this, because when these massive, fast-moving variables crash together, they don't just change things step by step. Historically, humanity has kind of had the luxury of dealing with major shifts one at a time, right? Maybe an industrial revolution here, a geopolitical realignment over there, but the projections show a future where rapid tech cycles, highly volatile inventory systems, shifting human behavior, geopolitical conflict, and climate extremes are all accelerating simultaneously. When these forces collide, they don't produce a simple linear progression. No way. They create this compounding effect that rapidly alters the very foundation of our daily lives.
So, the absolutely crucial point we need to understand is this core concept, a multidimensional shift. This is a nonlinear transformation caused by all these rapid changes colliding. You can't just trace a straight line from today's trends to tomorrow's reality because the rules of the game are being completely rewritten. To truly understand 2050, we have to stop looking at isolated changes and start seeing the multidimensional picture of how all these massive forces interact and overlap.
To demystify this complex future, we're going to walk through 4 specific pillars today. Just-in-case supply chains, adapting to new geography, the new multipolar landscape, and finally, the human identity shift.
Let's start right in with pillar number 1, just-in-case supply chains and the decentralized economy.
We are undergoing a massive structural change from the fragile ocean shipping networks of today to a hyper-localized, resilient economy. Think back to the early 2000s. The world operated on this just-in-time model. It was all about maximum efficiency, shipping finished goods across oceans, keeping massive warehouses totally bloated with inventory. But as we've seen, that system is incredibly fragile. By 2050, the data shows a pivot to a just-in-case model. This is a decentralized economy. Instead of moving finished products across the globe, trade will primarily consist of moving raw materials and digital data. Regional microfactories will just 3D print items locally. It's a real game changer that completely eliminates that massive warehouse bloat.
So how does that actually work? Well, in this decentralized economy, AI-driven predictive systems become so incredibly advanced that they anticipate what you need before you even realize you need it. Once that prediction is made, the order shoots over to a local microfactory which 3D prints the item right then and there. From there, heavy cargo drones and autonomous electric fleets running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week handle the delivery. It is a hyper-localized, predictive logistics network designed to just instantly absorb sudden supply shocks without missing a beat.
Moving on to our second pillar, adapting to new geography in a climate-adapted world.
By 2050, extreme weather and urban flooding will force a literal reset of our infrastructure. Imagine a monsoon-level surge hitting a megacity. Today, we try to uselessly block the water, right? But in 2050, these cities are completely re-engineered to absorb it. Enter the concept of sponge cities. We're moving away from rigid concrete barriers that eventually just fail and moving toward permeable pavements, massive underground flood basins, and artificial wetlands. The whole engineering philosophy shifts from resisting nature to absorbing its impact, fundamentally changing the architecture of our biggest global hubs.
And this means we are going to see a massive relocation. We're talking about populations shifting away from vulnerable low-lying regions to entirely new inland centers. Rising sea levels and extreme weather won't just be an inconvenience anymore. They will literally dictate demographics. In fact, coastal retreat will become a formal government policy in many nations. People won't just be moving organically. There will be a structured migration toward rapidly growing inland economic hubs. The map of where humanity clusters and does business is going to be radically redrawn by 2050.
But here's the big question. How do we protect the global food supply when traditional farming faces way too many weather risks? The answer is a massive agri-tech revolution. You simply can't rely on open fields if the weather is highly volatile. So by 2050, much of the world's produce will shift indoors to vertical farming environments. We'll be relying heavily on climate-resilient, genetically adapted crops that can actually survive these new extremes. And all of this is going to be managed by automated precision agriculture. It's basically a high-tech shield designed to keep the world fed regardless of what's happening in the atmosphere outside.
Okay, for our third pillar, let's look at the new multipolar landscape, focusing on world conflicts and geopolitics. The data objectively shows how traditional territorial disputes are evolving into constant, unpredictable, low-intensity algorithmic and resource conflicts. The geopolitical tension of 2050 won't primarily be about drawing borders on a map. Instead, the focus shifts entirely to strategic resources. Nations will be vying for access to fresh water, rare earth minerals, agricultural land, and of course, highly critical semiconductor supply chains. The nature of warfare changes too. We're looking at an era of hybrid and autonomous warfare. Think cyber operations, algorithmic warfare, and highly advanced drone systems. It paints a picture of a world where conflict might be less visibly explosive, but it's constant, low intensity, and highly unpredictable.
Because of this constant tension, deep global interdependence basically shatters, forcing nations to rely on secure regional economic blocs. And that brings us to a really vital term for 2050, friendshoring. In the past, global trade was all about finding the cheapest labor and materials anywhere on Earth, completely regardless of political alliances. But the data shows that to safeguard energy and food security in this fragmented world, nations will prioritize trading almost exclusively within trusted allied networks. We're moving from a deeply interconnected global web to highly strategic, heavily fortified regional alliances.
Finally, we reach our fourth pillar, the human identity shift, looking at behavior and culture.
All these macro-level shifts in AI, climate migration, and local manufacturing ultimately cascade down to change our very culture and our daily attention. Think about it for a second. If your goods are predicted by AI and printed locally, if your city is physically re-engineered to absorb floods, and if global politics has retreated into trusted regional blocks, your daily experience of life is completely different than it is today. The way we work, the way we connect with each other, and even how we process information and maintain our attention will be fundamentally reshaped by these changes. We aren't just changing our tools here, we are completely changing how we live our lives.
So we've explored the data pointing to a profoundly resilient, decentralized, and highly complex future. The world of 2050 won't just be a straight line from today. It's a multi-dimensional shift. Hyper-localized supply chains, climate-adapted megacities, high-tech indoor agriculture, and a fractured multipolar geopolitical landscape heavily reliant on friendshoring and autonomous networks. The systems that got us here absolutely will not be the systems that keep us moving forward. The future belongs to those who can adapt to this non-linear reality. So as we look at all these massive, colliding variables reshaping our entire human identity, the only question left to ask is, are you ready for 2050?